Hey, everybody. Welcome to Big Blend Radio's second Tuesday Food, Wine, and Travel Show with the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association. Every second Tuesday, we cover a specific destination with one of the associate members of the organization, which we call IFTWA. It's much easier to say. You can go to their website, ifwtwa.org. And today we're going to Kitsap. It's a peninsula up in Washington State. It's actually known as the natural side of the Puget Sound, and it's really close to Seattle. In fact, it's just a hop over the water, I bet. So go to visitkitsap.com, and we're excited to welcome Beth Javens, who is the director of Visit Kitsap. So welcome, Beth. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. Well, I am doing well. It's a great day today on the peninsula. Waters are relatively calm. I feel like I'm delivering a weather forecast.
That's wonderful. And you're out on the peninsula, and you think about island travel, and often we'll go, okay, to the Caribbean, or, you know what I mean? Our minds sometimes don't realize that these are these unique islands and ecosystems that we have up in the Pacific Northwest. So you're still having that seaside adventure, but it is different than the tropical island, yet, bounty of seafood and wildlife and just outdoor play.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that it's still a relatively unknown area simply because of the proximity. I mean, the proximity to Seattle is quite good. The proximity to the Olympics is quite good, but we sort of are in the middle of those two geographic powerhouses. And so we really feel like our water, our maritime heritage, our military history, our Native American and Indigenous culture. These are all things that certainly we want people to learn more about and become more familiar with, as well as the communities and neighborhoods and districts on the peninsula, which number almost over 40.
Wow. So how big is the peninsula?
Yeah.
Just to think, I mean, because I think I was reading at one point that some of these all make up 200,000 residents.
Yes, we have a little under 300,000, and we have over 371 miles of shoreline. And yeah, when I first started here, someone said, yeah, if it wasn't for this like tiny strip of land down south, we would probably be an island. So we are almost completely surrounded by water. And that's one of the reasons why our water trails designation has become such an important part of our identity and our, marketing strategy to bring people here, not just for actually being on the water, for kayaking or stand-up paddleboarding or fishing or scuba diving or, any of the things that you would consider windsurfing, wind sailing, they're different activities, but having access to the water and giving people the resources to know how to enjoy the water with that designation and those programs. So that's really cool.
So I want everyone to know it's the Kitsap Peninsula Water Trails, and it's part of the National Water Trails Alliance, and it's the only trail in the state of Washington, which is huge. It's also part of the Maritime Washington National Heritage Area. So that, heritage areas are so unique because it's all part of the National Park Service, but it's where the community and the Park Service work together, and it's history, it's nature, it's the locals. And oftentimes, depending on where you are, it is also including the Indigenous people and communities. And that seems the same in your area.
You described that perfectly with the Maritime Washington Heritage Area. They're working through their management plan, of which we hope to be a very strategic partner. And that was one of the things that they commented on, was that this is a community effort. It's not regulated by the Park Service, but it's a designation. And so you have people who are experts in climate adaptation and environmental stewardship and Native American culture. It is about beaches and marine life and communities that are within the shore, the shorelines. There's, I think, over 30 communities that are shoreline communities, 18 tribes. So that description is perfect.
So this one thing too, I know that you were based out of the Space Coast area in Florida, where Nancy and I just, in fact, we've done it twice now. Every time and we're probably going to do it again. We're going back to Florida later. Actually, right as this interview is airing, we'll be driving probably right through the Space Coast, because we can't help but veer off, because it's really not far from the main highway just to go.
Right.
There's Titusville. There's, we're in love with Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge and that whole area when it comes to nature. What's interesting, it is the Space Coast, because you've got, Canaveral. Then at the same time, you've also got a lot of military history that is embodied within Cape Canaveral, which is one of our national seashores out of the Park Service and part of the Wildlife Refuge. Everyone's working together. So this, this area, and I know you've started as director in May. So this has to be kind of right up your alley of everyone working together to make this work. Having been in the Space Coast, it's just a completely different climate.
Yeah, it certainly is very literally a different climate from the East Coast, but it's no less important in terms of obviously all the resources that are here, the education, the cultural access to all of the communities have really unique and diverse identities, but we all share in the maritime heritage. We all share in our Indigenous culture and heritage. We all share in our military history. We all share in, our activities and environmental stewardship and those things. So I think that's what makes this a great place to visit, and a lot more people are discovering it as a great place to live. So yeah, very happy to be, even though it's just been since May, since I started, I'm learning right along with everybody who's learning about the Kitsap Peninsula and, how many communities are here and what there is, what there is to do, the trails, we have urban trails, we have water trails. So it is pretty diverse.
Your history, I was reading a little bit about the Native American history, and it's so different from when you say out west and you talk Native American history. A lot of times people will think, oh, well, the Indian wars and scalping and people shooting each other and the whole thing of conquering the Native American and taking their land. But up in Washington, you had a tribe that was like, hey, let's just be friends and get along. And they seem to have kept that kind of laid back friendship throughout, so you don't have that big wartime thing in your history, which I find pretty cool,
As somebody who has lived in Wyoming as well, and the plains, and has lived in Cheyenne and Laramie, there's definitely.
You should just go on the road with us. You've been everywhere.
I will.
Cool.
If you invite me, I will. Isn't it interesting though how each communities are tied together, and how there's sort of a segue into new conversations about different places in our geography and our history. And it feels, as you were mentioning, that's kind of like the Hollywood version of, our Native American culture. I think one of the key attractions, if you will, certainly from a cultural standpoint, is going to the Tsuquamish Museum, spending time, on the land, learning about that piece of our history, and sort of that being the jumping off point for, really having your Puget Sound experience. Currently, Chief Seattle, there's an exhibit on Chief Seattle at the Tsuquamish Museum, and it runs through January 22nd. And it's quite impressive and educational. And then the tribe will host other tribes in 2024 where they will canoe, and the Tsuquamish tribe will host and have salmon bakes and interpretive and just festive events going on that I believe just happened a few years ago, but they're going to be the host again in the near future. So that's a really profound experience for people who are there. So,
nice.
Sounds, so you've got this history, and then the maritime history is always fascinating, you know, and then at the same time, I want to talk about nature. I saw some, I think there's seagulls floating around behind you earlier.
Yeah.
And, you know,
So,
so we'll go to the
cool.
wildlife and nature. I know over in Florida, you had manatees and crocodiles, not crocodiles, alligators.
Yeah.
Crocodiles, you get them further south, Miami and Everglades area. But, you know, just so people know I'm not stupid. I had to put that in there. Uh-oh, Nancy, don't
I'm
say a
rubbing
thing.
my
Don't
eyeballs.
say a thing. Just kidding.
I'm not saying anything.
But whales, you've had whales over there, but from what I have learned, your area for whale watching is absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, and I think as someone who did orca tours many years ago as a visitor to the state of Washington, obviously, again, talking about our climate adaptation, our environmental stewardship, our advocacy for our natural resources, our marine life, we are able to see this marine life actually on the water. It doesn't have to necessarily be from a boat. Most of the time, a lot of times people will come out and they'll be on their kayak, they'll be in their kayaks, they'll be, you know, doing a paddle. We have 6 paddles a year that are officially coordinated with us and with an outfitter in Port Gamble. And we go, you know, throughout the different communities on the peninsula. And we often see, I haven't seen a whale yet, but I've seen them from near my house in the Bremerton area. There was a pod of orcas that came through about a month ago. But yeah, I mean, the opportunities to do sort of that coordinated whale watching experience or marine life experience can be done from a kayak. Of course, you know, they're going to go where the fish are. So if you're where the fish are, then your chances are probably pretty good that you're going to see something. Yeah.
And otters, you have otters and sea lions and all of that.
All types of marine life here, and lots of organizations that are working to protect and just communicate the message about the importance of making sure that we have critical habitats for those species to, you know, continue, you know, whether it's salmon, the orcas. Yeah, it's pretty impressive how many people are coming together to make sure that we're, you know, good stewards of our land and our waters.
That's important,
cool.
you know, being a peninsula
Yes.
or an island, it affects you even more, and being on the water especially, you know. So it's really great to hear that, because there's the community, and then there's also the travel community that comes, you know, out. And if the message is clear, then we're going to behave a little bit better, I hope, you know, and maybe spread some of the knowledge that we learn while we're there somewhere else to everybody. Everybody needs to kind of, you know, do something to take care of our you know, parks, our public spaces, and just even whether how we take care of our home and our gardens and our local community. You know, we really do need to watch what's happening with climate change and making sure those habitats are there. So hiking trails, that's got to be something where folks can really get out and explore and probably see kind of the mainland part. It's hard to imagine how much mainland do you have versus water, you know?
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, you know, getting here to get to the trails is the first thing, right? So, and I know that you've done lots of chats with our neighbors in Whidbey and Camino and others in San Juan's. And so we all feel like the quintessential ferry experience is something that visitors are going to do when they come to the Pacific Northwest and they come to the state of Washington, right? Which is find their way onto a ferry, whether it's a foot ferry or their automobile, and then making sure if they don't have an automobile, there's a lot of very accessible communities that you can experience, whether it's within a community or just outside a community, whether it's in the forest on Bainbridge Island, or if it's in Heritage Park up in Port Gamble. We have just behind me, just across the water, there's an urban trail in Silverdale that's quite popular. So yeah, that piece of our community is very important. And we're sort of really known for more soft adventure, where we have, you know, the Olympics just beyond us across the Hood Canal, which is, obviously much more rugged landscape. It's a much more, more of a not a soft adventure. It can be, depending on what people are interested in, if they're interested in passive recreation or if they're interested in more active recreation. I think what's great about having the two peninsulas, right here, is that you can enjoy a little bit of both of those experiences if you want to. And I just came back from a trip through Olympic and the Long Beach Peninsula. We certainly have a lot of peninsulas up here. So, they're different, they're divergent, but there are so many ways that we're complementary as well.
Well, I'm jealous.
I
I want to go play.
I know we're going to have to come and do some side trips when we're in Anacortes this year. I mean, next year in February. We're going to be in February, March, end of February, early March. We're going to have to plan some side trips, Nancy. I want to see an orca.
Well, I think, isn't March a good time for that?
Yeah, March has got to be. Yeah, we're so used to being in California and the, February, March being, well, doesn't start November, December through to March of the, the whales migrating down. But those are more the blue and the gray whales, I think.
Yeah.
The orcas would be a rare thing, but
we'll get you set up with our resident expert in being on the water up in Port Gamble or Paulsbo, and see if we can get you on the water sometime in the spring. We start our coordinated paddles in April. There's a paddle in Gig Harbor, then there's another paddle in May. And then June, we paddle from East Bremerton to Port Orchard. And all of these communities have access points for the water trail. So that's why we come back to talking about that a lot, because it really does, you really can connect the communities. You can be connected to the communities on a kayak, and you can pull your kayak up to paddle your kayak up to a restaurant on a dock and get to carry out and have lunch in your kayak, or just get out of your kayak and go have lunch. So yeah, I mean, it's
can you turn that into a margarita trail?
That's like a paddle through restaurant.
I know, I love that. Well, it's kind of interesting. They do that in Louisiana. They'll come up for, they'll go out on their boats and come up to an oyster bar, get their lunch and continue on, or go fishing from there. Even while they're eating from the restaurant, they're fishing. It's hysterical. I love it because it's kind of this whole other, we're always so mainland in this country. I think that we forget about our waterways being another way of travel, especially, there's maritime reserves where, a lot of the park is underwater. And so it's hard for people to imagine what's under there unless you get in there and have a look at it. And I love the kayaking part because it's such a gentle way of exploring a region. It's very gentle, So
on a day like today, it's pretty nice. There have been some days that, depending on how many boats are in the water, as with being in Florida or any community where there's water or waterway, when boats of various vessels of various sizes are coming through the water, it can be fun to take on that wake. But, if you want to stay dry, maybe not. But it doesn't seem to be real severe, but it can be very serene and I'll tell you, it's a great way to look at real estate from the water as well.
You know what? That's true. Point. Yeah, we've done that on a boat in Tyler, Texas. They took us out on a boat, and one of the houses from that one show where HGTV, where they won the $1 million house or something, was there. But apparently that person went bankrupt on their house. I know you win the house and then you go bankrupt on it. Like, what? And it's free. Anyway, I don't know. I'm just gossiping, but
but I mean, it's really interesting.
It is neat. You go like, what are you doing there? And what's your garden look like? Oh, that's what I wanted to ask. What's it like? I know that you've got Blue Dell Reserve, and travel writer Debbie Stone was there. We covered that just a few months ago, and it looks beautiful. We've got a mansion on there. So from there, when you look at the photos of, the gardens there, is that kind of what it's like traveling around the peninsula? So beautiful like that?
So, we have some very notable gardens, and Blodell on Bainbridge is a reserve. It's I'd say more of a serene, sort of reflective place to go and walk and experience having that sort of serenity of the gardens and, the reflective pool and the architecture of that building, the Japanese tea house. So it's a different experience than, say, going to Heronswood, which is in North County as well, but that is run by, managed by one of the tribes, and they have an incredible director in Patrick, who used to have his own series it was called Expeditions with Patrick McMillan on PBS. I mean,
wow.
he has every, knowledge of every species of plant and flower, and they're all, identified at Heronswood, whereas Bloedel, you don't see that sort of, you don't really have that type of a feel. It's really very expansive and very, groomed paths, but it's really a different experience, where Heronswood is also a spectacular experience, very, very popular, but I don't think as well known as Bloedel. And then the other garden, we have several. I mean, there's several on Bainbridge with Japanese heritage. Yeah, which is, very important to people who live on Bainbridge, as well as all of us here in the Pacific Northwest. But there's specific story there, as they have the Japanese Exclusion Memorial there, and that's part of the Department of the Interior. But Heronswood Garden is an amazing garden, and Elandon Garden, which is just near Bremerton and Port Orchard, where bonsai, all different species, over 200 species of trees and plants, and just an amazing place to visit. So if you're into that scene, while you're here, certainly take advantage of that. And I'm learning more about that aspect of our communities as well. So
it's so different going from Florida to there. Just the natural and the ruggedness is different, so I think it's so cool that you've gone from there to there, so you can have this whole new, it's like, yeah, we're on the water, but this is a whole different thing. And the plants, you'll have similar plants, but they'll be different because of the weather,
I think Bloedel, since Florida, is sort of reminiscent of the property that's in Lake Wales, and I'm trying to remember the name of it, that has the Carillon, and it's a amazing property, and I'll think of it and I'll let you know what it is, but you should definitely check it out.
3 in the morning. 3 in the morning. Call me at 3. Yeah, but this is the cool thing when people go to the gardens and get that feel for what it's like to live there as well. Are there people moving over, kind of like this is our second home, or, retirement homes? Is that happening?
I think there's quite a bit of that happening, or has happened, and people have had their homes and their second homes here for quite a while along the Hood Canal. We typically are seeing a lot of our travelers come from the Seattle-Tacoma area. They come from Spokane, they come from Portland, they come from Northern, Central, and Southern California. That's the vast majority of our market. And so I think where Kitsap Peninsula is going to be incredibly popular in the next couple years is we will be the beneficiary of the growth that is happening in the Seattle area, King County, Pierce County. Will be the recipient of that. It's up to the powers that be to figure out how to manage that and how to accommodate all of the people who are coming here. But it provides a lot of new opportunities for new businesses to serve the residents and the traveling public, and lots of, I think, other recreational opportunities will be more, popular as well. Of course, that was very popular during the pandemic. It continues to be something that people are seeking out. coming to the Pacific Northwest, whether it's Oregon or Washington, Northern California, now that the borders are going to, they're open, our Canadian neighbors. So that's going to be awesome to have. And again, I think, people are they're going to discover it now, where I think before, because, there wasn't as much growth, and a lot of jobs are being created in the tech industry. It's always been at sales very, very strong in terms of its employers, Boeing, Microsoft, Amazon. More people will be coming to the peninsula. And we have 4 ferry terminals, over 100 routes daily to get here. Yeah.
Okay, so we know we can get there. We don't have to swim, Nancy.
Oh gosh, I'm so glad.
We can kayak.
You could kayak. You don't have to swim. You can take a fast ferry. You can take the Washington State ferry system, and it's you can leave from any of 4 terminals, whether it's Kingston up from Snohomish County over to from Edmonds to Kingston, or the Bainbridge Bremerton routes, which are in downtown Seattle. And then the West Seattle route is in the Fauntleroy area, and that stops at Vashon before it lands in Southworth, which is South County. And then you can always drive over the Tacoma Narrows Bridge and get here as well. So, we're
going to have to do a ferry.
We have not
done a ferry yet, and we're ready. We're ready for the ferry. Yes, we want to do the ferry. That's that's the part of the experience, like you were saying. Before you go, I did want to touch on food, because you've got places like Port Orchard, but listen, also Port Gamble. Like, come on, you've got gambling, you've got orchards, you've got all kinds of good names going on there. But what is the food scene like? Obviously, a lot of fish, right? Because like fish to table, I should say, from water to table.
Yeah, certainly. We have an abundance of seafood. I think Bainbridge really has covered the market on their wine tasting and tasting rooms, and a vineyard, and Olalla Winery is down in South County. So that's very popular, award-winning winery in the South County. I reference this because we have North County, where Bainbridge is. Port Gamble is a historic mill town. It was a mill town. It's on the National Register of Historic Places. It was a former site of a mill. It's now a very small community of retailers, food, wine, tastings, picnics. It's a great place to come and have a picnic, to do
I like that.
Some vistas similar to the ones behind me, kayaking, mountain biking. It's also very well known for its paranormal experience, and they're going to have ghost tours in about a week and a half.
Cool.
I love it. I love
that.
it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I'm sure that whether or not how wine figures into the paranormal, I'm sure there's a story there somewhere.
There's always wine and the paranormal go together.
Yeah,
you've got to be a little bit more relaxed to let them in.
Yeah. So you can grab your wine at the general store. Every community seems to have a mercantile or a general store, because that's where everybody went to do their daily trading back in the day. So that's North County. Blake Island is known for Telecom Village. Argosy Cruises was doing many cruises and tours over there before COVID, and I'm sure we'll resume them. And Telecom Village will do interpretive tours, salmon bakes. And then more in the central part of the county, we have Paulsbo, which is the Viking city, and it's also known here to us as Little Norway. And it's in your screen there.
Oh,
your background. That's Paulsbo and Liberty Bay. So you're going to find like some of our more popular bakeries in Paulsbo. And in Central County, we have a lot of bakeries, I've noticed. Maybe it's just
there's
because I like
nothing wrong
bakery.
with
But
that. Yeah,
there's-
there's nothing
but
wrong with that.
I think you're famous for pierogies in that
Really?
area. Yes, it's a Polish sandwich, and yeah, and I was Googling that, and they like, what are you famous for food-wise? And pierogies came up, and I'm
Oh,
like,
yummy.
wow, yum.
I didn't know that.
Yummy. Yeah.
Well, I'm from Western Pennsylvania, and pierogies were a
Oh,
big
wow.
thing in Western Pennsylvania, but I don't think I've had a pierogi here yet. I've had a lot of really good pastries and breads
Yeah.
and fish and wine. And we are also very known for our craft breweries as well, and our
Oh, good.
spirits. So we have some distillers, Heritage, Highside. Heritage is down in Gig Harbor. I don't want to forget Gig Harbor because they are part of the Kitsap Peninsula, though they're in Pierce County, which is where Tacoma is. But they're just over the bridge from Tacoma. They have some fabulous places. Lots of people retire in Gig Harbor, but there are lots of visitors there as well. Those are one of those places where you can paddle up to a restaurant and grab lunch while you're on the water. And so, yeah, we have a number of different cuisines here and feature a number of different restaurant groups over in Bainbridge that have opened their restaurants and are still surviving from COVID, that maybe were, had a restaurant in Seattle and they opened a restaurant in Bainbridge or another community here on Kitsap. So yeah, I think Bainbridge really has a very popular following for wine and food. Yeah.
All sounds good to me.
That's awesome.
I know.
Yeah.
And but you get to go kayak and go hiking afterwards to work it all off. See, but I like the kayak picnic idea with wine. Kayak somewhere, go for a little walk, get a good view, have some wine.
Pierogi. Got to take your pierogi and wine.
Yeah.
Or pierogi and beer. Either.
We can make that happen.
It all can happen. I love this. Well, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks for joining us. And everyone, go to the website, visit kitsap.com, and that's KITSAP, kitsap.com. And of course, keep up with the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association at ifwtwa.org. And you can listen to Big Blend Radio. Just go to bigblendradio.com. Our shows air Sunday through Friday. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, Beth. Hopefully we'll see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.